afternoon. On behalf of the professor and mine, I would like to show the preliminary results of short research studies that have been presented that focuses on recognition of telematic systems in the supply chains. As we all know, supply chain faces and has been facing unlimited number of challenges. Out of the few that a contemporary supply chain needs to face is, of course, the complex structure of the whole process, that numerous tasks and operations that are to be performed relatively quickly and pretty often at the same time. And the fact that each of the stage of that is to be performed bears the risk of inefficiency that we have to limit. If we treat telematics as a tool, it seems prudent not to forget that this is one of the tools that offered the possibility of planning and monitoring on various stages of operation. It could be really the good answer for many of the challenges that contemporary logistics chain has to face. And at the same time, it can help to facilitate the work and simply improve its effects, either by shortening the time or simply by upgrading the smoothness of each of the tasks that is to be made. When we look at the way telematics may be used in the automotive sector, we may treat it as simply as an information-intensive application or set of applications that is being able for the vehicles by combinations of telecommunications and the computing technology as wide definition as possible. Of course, the most crucial aspect is the issue of simply information being used in the supply chain. Information is shared up and down and horizontally during the supply chain. As you know, the current method is rather to the network rather than the chain, thus making the information sharing even more important. If we share the information, it enables all the parties to plan appropriately to meet the current and the future needs of the single operation. Thanks to that, numerous goals can be achieved. For example, we can minimize the inventory, we can reduce the costs, we can improve the product time to the market, and we can enhance the flexibility of each of the parties taking part into the system. Out of the few that support the telematics could offer to the supply chains, it would be the improvement in the warehousing, of course increasing the safety in driving, in different types of industry, just for the example, just the mining industry, of course enhancing the cargo management or controlling drivers' performance, of course improving the management of the fleet that each of the parties could manage, or simply speeding up the flow of the stages in rescue operations. These are just by the few that could be recognized on this field. Therefore, we wanted to ask the question how the systems in the telematic systems in the supply chains are identified and recognized. Again, that could be various solutions, from the GPS to the threshold data or road traffic monitoring. We were interested to see how the parties taking part in the supply chain react and recognize and are able to declare their really needs and the way they use the materials or the tools they are being offered to them. Therefore, we recognize 5 aspects that have been monitored or researched. That was the option of identifying the concentration of the systems being present in the subject structure of the supply chain, them being present in the transport structure, in the functional structure, and identifying the systems as the support element of the managing function, and finally identifying the application specializations of telematic systems in the supply chain. Out of the results, we decided to show the chosen version of them concerning the appearance of the telematic systems within the structure of the supply chains as such. The identification of the telematic system within the transport structure, the function structure, the support, and the implementation in the supply chain. When we look at the first of the issues, meaning the appearance of the telematic systems within the structure of the supply chain, it can be visible that out of the parties recognized within the supply chain, meaning the customer, retailer, distributor, producer, and supplier, majority of them recognizing the systems were from among the group of distributors that concerned 32% of all the answers. Just behind them with 29% there were the retailers, customers proving the least conscious of that. When we look at the identification of telematic systems within the transport structure of the supply chain, the main part was the means of transport themselves, that proving 40%. The route or the cargo itself was more or less similar, 28 to 32%. When we look at the supply chain from the perspective of the function structure, the major area for using telematic answers and abilities was in the warehousing. It was again 32%. They were followed by being used in the outlets. That's 26%, and later with transport, packaging, and finally with the orders proving to be 11% of the answers sent. When we treat the systems and the tools as just the support element, but for the managing functions, not for the operating itself, the major role they were playing was in the organizing the structure and the process. That was 36%. Later or further, there was planning and controlling, 32 and 21%. Leading aspect or leading processes was just with 11% of the functions. The issue of identification of the specialization of telematic system implementation in the supply chain, the most important features seemed to be the improving the management of the transport means, proving to be 31% of all the answers sent, and improving health and safety issues. That was pretty numerously mentioned. That was 20%. Improving work operations in warehouses, despite the fact that warehousing was shown as one of the most important areas, here proved to be just 30% of answers shown. It seemed not to be as important as declared previously. Such research proved us or led us to some of the remarks that ought to be considered in the future studies. First one being that telematic system constitutes the active element of the supply, of the shaping the structure and the functionalities of the supply chains, allowing us to adjust them to the methods we would like to use, to the needs we express and to the needs expressed by other parties of the same system. The allocation of telematic systems in the supply chains is asymmetric. Not all the parties seem to be in the need of using the used or the offered tools. Not all the parties seem conscious of potential needs or potential facilities such methods offer. Whereas other parties seem to be keenly interested in the offered, trying to use all the potential systems, trying to use all the methods and all the helps available to smooth the process of the operation. Telematic systems are shaping positive effect of the goods transported via supply chains, allowing to face and facilitate many of the problems previously met. Finally, the development of the systems in the supply chains constitutes, of course, the active element of the support. I think it's one of the most continuously changing factors. We cannot say all was set and offered already on this market. All the things are being changed, adjusted, therefore the range of the offer seems to be spreading, and the abilities are also changing pretty quickly. To conclude, telematic systems are crucial in many aspects of contemporary economics, not limiting to the supply chains or logistic itself anyway. They help, they provide, and the approach to the methods of conducting various aspects of daily business activities are not to be overrated because they are shaping our methods of or the means of running the business or running or answering all the parties and the cooperation, the parties taking part in the supply chain processes all the time. If such tools are used, not only is the work smoother or meeting less mistakes or faults or problems, but there appear more advanced methods or means of spread positive control over the performed activities. We are able to monitor each and every aspect. We are able to use this monitoring in a positive way. And thanks to this system and thanks to the support it offers, the work performance becomes facilitated, more developed, and simply easy to manage. Parties taking part in the system, in the chain, are able to make the decision, change the decision, and apply the changes into already running operation, which is not the way it used to be or not the way it was possible to be done. Of course, there are other not so positive aspects that should be taken into consideration. We shouldn't forget about one more conclusion that faces through the analysis we've tried to perform. Meaning, in order to maintain and achieve the increased performance level of the supply chain operations, the operation providers implement the tools which allow to cut down the time needed for each stage and provide increased control over each and every aspect of the work. And such approach means most often great mechanization of the process and as big as possible. And somehow one reaches somewhat of a bit of a paradox, meaning that in order to spread the increased control level, more and more of the operation aspects is taken from human hands into machine network. At the same time, we are depriving humans not only from the possibility to perform the tasks, the desired effect that was like the first thing, the mission to implement such method, but also from the possibility to stop the process immediately when emergency happens, or to reflect some of the performance stages. I think that we are sort of closing the vicious circle. On one hand, we would like the process to be as mechanized as possible. And as human factor seems to be one of the most unpredictable one, we try to follow the situation where really the risk of such lack of control is as limited as possible. However, in a certain moment, we are sort of depriving ourselves from any possibility to react. The question is, where should be the line? Where should we say stop? And when this method or these tools are desired, and where is the place where this human factor should not be considered as risky, but as needed? Just to spread this one yet level of human control over the whole mechanical process we decide to make. That's all. Thank you.